This is Daniela Cambone, and I just had the pleasure of emceeing the Stansberry Conference and Alliance meeting in Las Vegas. It's our most successful conference for investors and Alliance members to date. All of the Stansberry editors were there propelling conversations forward alongside our keynote speakers, Mohammed Al-Arian and Grant Williams, and my longtime friend and Goldbug, John Duty. The Stansberry Alliance Conference is an event I look forward to every year. And for a limited time, you have access to watch the live stream from last week's presentations with free ticker recommendations and panel conversations among the smartest analysts I know and more. So you still have time to be in the room with these folks and me by purchasing a live stream ticket. Visit DaniLivestream.com. That's Dani, D-A-N-I, livestream.com to gain access now. We hope you don't miss this chance. See you soon. Hi, this is Daniela Cambone, and welcome back to StansberryInvestor.com. Big news of the week, the Biden administration is asking federal court to lift an order that blocked its rule mandating that larger employers require workers to get COVID vaccines or submit to regular testing. The request filed Monday comes after the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals ruled in favor of a group of businesses to halt the order, citing grave statutory and constitutional issues. This has put the ruling on hold until pending litigation could be heard. Joining me today to discuss all this is Judge Andrew Napolitano. Judge, welcome to Stansberry Investor. So good to be with you.
Thank you, Danielle. It's great to be with you.
Could not think of a better guest. Our mutual friend, Gerald Celente, has said, you are the only judge in America who truly understands the Constitution. So welcome.
Well, that's very flattering to hear from Gerald. There are other judges who understand the Constitution. Some of them don't have the fortitude to express their understanding in their will in their professional work.
So let's talk about this news. You know, the Biden administration's vaccine mandate for large employers was always going to face legal challenges, no surprise there. But it only made it 2 whole days really before one succeeded in blocking it. I mean, how does this play out? What's your take here, Judge?
Well, the president and the Occupational Health and Safety Administration, known by its acronym OSHA, and the Department of Labor are really in virgin territory here. I mean, the federal government, through the Department of Labor, through OSHA, has never claimed the right to force employers to enforce a federal regulation, not a federal statute that was enacted by Congress, but a regulation written by bureaucrats at the behest of the president, which involves compelling employees to take an experimental drug. Now, let's unpack that. The drug's experimental. That violates the Nuremberg Accords, which prohibits all governments that are signatories to those accords, among which is the U.S. government, from compelling experimental drugs. It's a regulation enacted by bureaucrats. It's not a statute enacted by the Congress. Therefore, there's no authority to use force or coercion or punishment in order to compel compliance. And it violates Supreme Court opinions, which basically say to the government, you can't deliver the mail, you can't fill potholes, you can't stop robocalls. Now you're going to tell businesses how to operate. So the whole thing is a farce. What struck me the most, Daniela, was the comment by the 3 circuit court judges in New Orleans who could have issued an injunction just for the Fifth Circuit, which is Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. Instead, they did 2 things. They issued an injunction for the entire United States of America. They have the authority to do it, but it's very rarely exercised. And they said in their injunction, we have, quote, grave constitutional concerns. Now, rarely, Daniela, I've been in this business for 45 years, rarely do the courts modify constitutional concerns with the word grave, unless it's quite obvious from the face of the regulation, without even hearing the government's argument, without even going beneath the surface of what the government's trying to do. Very, very obvious that it's a violation of the Constitution. That's basically what happened in New Orleans, where the Fifth Circuit sits over the weekend. The government responded. The plaintiffs, who are businesses and state attorneys general, will respond, and then the Fifth Circuit will rule again. I don't see them changing their position at all. And then the Department of Justice, which can't accept a defeat, will go to the Supreme Court. I don't think the Supreme Court will get involved.
Yeah, it's just, obviously, look, the debate in a nutshell, those who do not want to get vaccinated versus those saying, I am vaccinated and I don't want to be working in the same place with you if you're not, because it poses a risk to my health. Who's right? Who's wrong? How does it get settled legally?
I suppose at some point the courts will resolve it. I mean, the Supreme Court has never resolved this issue of whether the government can use private businesses to enforce a regulation that's not even a statute enacted by the Congress. I mean, this is Joe Biden's whim. This is not, I mean, if he really wants to compel people to get vaccinated, ask the Congress to enact legislation. The Congress won't. There isn't the will for it. There isn't the votes for it. If members of Congress know they won't be there in 2 or 4 or 6 years if they vote for something as hideous as this. So eventually the courts will have to decide whether or not the federal government, without using the legislative process, can compel people to take an experimental drug, and whether it can compel employers at their own expense to enforce this federal regulation. For years, the federal government has forced the states to enforce federal law because the feds, even though they can print all the cash they want, they don't have the resources to enforce all federal laws and all federal regulations. We have now sunk to a new low, to the literal definition of fascism: private ownership and government control. So when the government controls private property and controls business judgments by the owners of the private property and the businesses on the private property, we've reached the state of fascism where the government can't enforce its own regulations and it threatens to punish the private property over the businesses. Whether you're a large mom and pop that employs 101 employees, or whether you're United Airlines with 500,000 employees to do the government's will.
So to break it down, if you are someone who does not want to take the vaccine for whatever reasons, but wants to keep their job, what are your options? Do you have any? Will you have any?
Your options are your options are to be tested. I mean, the 10-minute test, I have taken it. We've all taken it. It's an invasion of the body, a Q-tip in the nose, and the government doesn't have the right to compel you to put anything in your body. But a 10-minute test is a lot less invasive than an experimental chemical in your veins. The other argument is, under the Americans for Disabilities Act, the employers of 100 or more persons are required to accommodate people who, I hate to use this word, but it would apply under the law, whose refusal to take the vaccine constitutes a disability. Stated differently, the employer needs to accommodate the unvaccinated with comparable working conditions and no loss of compensation. It's a federal statute I believe is unconstitutional. I think George H.W. Bush was unwise to have signed it. He hemmed and hawed. He was about to veto it. He changed his mind. But it is the law, and this is an opportunity for it to be enforced.
Judge, I'm interested to get your thoughts, because as all this is unfolding, it's unfolding under a light of the Aaron Rodgers drama, which I'm sure you've been following. Everyone has chimed in on this. Everyone from Terry Bradshaw saying, he's a liar, this should never have happened, to Jimmy Kimmel weighing in on it. What's your take?
Well, I'm a New York Giants fan.
So there you go.
The connection between the Giants is they had an unknown, unheard of assistant coach whom the Green Bay Packers stole one year, and he became the greatest football coach in history until Bill Belichick came along. His name is Vince Lombardi. So there is this Giants-Packers connection. I think Aaron Rodgers is a person of conscience and personal fortitude, and I commend him. Unfortunately, it's making him very popular because the Green Bay fans are probably more fanatic than any other fans. And if he's not on the field because of his own behavior, it's not going to sit well with them. But the test of conscience is not in good times when things go well. It's in bad times when things don't go well. And he's sticking to his guns, and my hat is off to him.
Judge, let's bring it home with this. Okay, as you know, you like I said, you write on various topics for various outlets today. What's your number one concern and fear for America right now?
That the government's lawless behavior will be accepted by a nation of sheep. I write about the government's lawless behavior every week, and it terrifies me that its behavior no longer shocks. I mean, 2 weeks ago, the CIA itself leaked its own plans to assassinate Julian Assange. Even if he were a bad guy, in my opinion, he's the incarnation of personal freedom and personal courage and personal sacrifice to reveal the truth. Even if he weren't, who the heck is the CIA to go about murdering people? Did you read about it on the front pages? Did you hear anybody shocked over it? No and no. So it is the dulling of our sensitivities and sensibilities between right and wrong that terrifies me, because a government that can announce it was going to murder somebody, reveal in a courtroom that it tortured people, where there's no reaction from the public, is terrifying.
Judge Andrew Napolitano, I'll leave it with that. Thank you so much for joining me today on Stansberry Investor. I appreciate your thoughts.
My pleasure, Daniela. Thank you so much.
And thank you for watching. We'll have much more coming your way, so be sure to stay tuned. That's it for me. Thanks for watching.